Welcome, 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 welcome. Another interview with someone across the pond in Europe, so to speak. Thank you for joining us in our continuing series where we interview writers, reporters, columnists, activists, academics, anyone on the left, anyone on the right, as long as they have thoughtful perspectives. We want to bring them unedited and unaltered directly to you, the public, so that you could do this thing that was popular when I was in high school called thinking for yourself. Maybe it'll come back, maybe it won't. With us today, it's our privilege to have Levente Levy Littvay. He's a professor of political science at the Center for Social Sciences at Hungarian Research Network. That's him right there. The professor has a PhD from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln in the Department of Political Science in 2006. His research focused on methods in comparative politics. He also has a MS from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, Gallup Survey Research and Methodology. Also, he has served as a professor, Department of Political Science, Central European University, Budapest, Hungary. He's a specialty chief co-editor for Methods and Measurements in Frontiers in Political Science. He's also an academic convener, European Consortium for Political Research, ECPR Methods School. He's also been a visiting professor at Waseda University, Lausanne, European University Institute, University Bamberg, University Granada, Lauder School of Government, Diplomacy, Strategy, Interdisciplinary Center, now Reichman University, Herzliya, Israel, Washington State University, Pullman, Washington, McDonnell College, Budapest, ELTE, and the Center for Political International Studies. He's also spoken at many places, including Italy, Romania, Albania, Germany, Northern Illinois, Birmingham, Utah, Israel, and again back at Germany a couple more times. Some of the work that he's written about has been the role of parenting behaviors on the intergenerational covariation of grit. Immigrants, intergroup moral exclusion predicts in-group directed behavioral intentions, the mediating role of disidentification. Greater than the sum of its parts, opposition comeback to the 2019 Hungarian local elections, democratic hypocrisy and outgroup threat, belief in conspiracy theories and attitudes towards political violence, psychological correlates of populist attitudes, and developing a COVID-19 module for the European Social Survey. So he's worked at a lot of political issues. He studied in many different European countries and many states here in America. And this was the study that I found him, Democratic Hypocrisy and Outgroup Threat, Explaining Citizen Support for Democratic Erosion. But before we get to that, let's check in. Professor, did I say something wrong? Do we need to correct some of the bio? Restate?
No, not really. I am not working with the European Consortium for Political Research anymore. I'm working with another organization called MethodsNet. With MethodsNet, we focus on providing affordable training in research methodology for social scientists so they can do better quality research. We have a summer school. We train about 500-600 people every year so far, and we're expanding. So I was doing the same with the European Consortium for Political Research for almost a decade before that, but that ended, and now we're actually going more broadly the social sciences. So that's it. You said Birmingham. I think there might have been Brigham Young University in Utah. You might know that university as the
Brigham Young University, Provo. Yeah, it's spelled Birmingham, but yeah, Brigham Young University, Provo, Utah.
Is
very different type
is
of
that
university.
A typo? yeah, exactly.
Different type of university you'd find. Yeah,
BYU. Actually, one of my closest collaborator, Kirk Hawkins, who founded Team Populism to study populism around the world, kind of in a macro perspective, in a comparative perspective, so we can understand it better, not just focus on just one country. There's so much talk about Bernie Sanders being a populist or Donald Trump being a populist, and my prime minister Viktor Orban being a populist. So there's a lot of talk about this in a single country context. We wanted to study it more broadly. He's one of my closest collaborators, and I'm very proud of it because at the time we started working, I was at Central European University, which is known to be a very progressive university, founded by George Soros, to speak of a liberal call word. And BYU, of course, is one of the most conservative universities in the world. And Kirk is certainly one of the most conservative people I know, and that doesn't matter. We work together, we get along, our families are great friends, and I think that's how it should be.
There's a theory out there that there was a wave of populism that swept over the Western world, and that Viktor Orban in Hungary and Donald Trump in America, and I think Nigel Farage in England and the Five Star Movement in Italy were all connected. They were part of some wave, maybe not consciously directly, but seemed to be happening at the same time. There's some people who said that. Maybe we'll get into that. Maybe we won't. For today, though, I really wanted to pick your brain on this. You have studied many European countries. You've also been to the U.S. a couple times, as we talked about. You have been to the U.S. so many times that your favorite form of guitar music is bluegrass. Is that right?
That's true, indeed. That's my mandolin up there. I pick bluegrass, and that's just very close to my heart. I miss the annual Walnut Valley Bluegrass Festival that I used to go to in Wichita, Kansas when I was in Nebraska. Every year, went down there, camped, and picked bluegrass, and I miss it.
Well, we'd like to have you come back to visit more bluegrass. Bluegrass is an American art form, and we appreciate you studying it. Let's take a look at this study, Democratic Hypocrisy and Outgroup Threat, Explaining Citizen Support for Democratic Erosion. With you, Jennifer McCoy, she's done a lot of studies, and Gaber Simonovitz. With widespread Democratic backsliding globally, like I just mentioned, people's support for democracy eroding leaders is receiving overdue attention. But existing studies have difficulty disentangling contextual effects, such as who's in power at the time of the survey, from individual differences, which party one supports and how strongly. Moreover, we lack evidence of the causal antecedents of these attitudes. We propose a novel survey, experimental design, to strip away the political context through hypothetical scenarios, allowing us to identify citizens' differential support for democratic norms when their own party is in versus out of power. Our findings indicate a large degree of democratic hypocrisy among the American public, whose support for norm-eroding policies increases when their own party is in power, an effect further amplified by two indicators of polarization: strong expressive partisanship and threat perceived from the opposing party. That's the technical definition. Professor, what is this article about? And why were you studying it? And why did you think it was a good idea to study this at the time that you had done this research? What's going on in America? Speak to me like I've been in a cave for 7 years. Why was this an important topic? What's going on? Isn't everything cool and just fine in America, or are things not working out?
Well, okay. So let's start. I would say let's start with the election of Donald Trump. The election of Donald Trump has caused some alert, especially in the political science community, that maybe not everything's going great. I mean, he's definitely not your mainstream politician. He's definitely different in the United States. And one of the major worries at the time, and this goes back to 2016, we're not talking about 2020 or anything along those lines. So at the time, there was a lot of concern that people might not be as supportive of democracy as we're used to. And we've looked at the data. If you ask people, do you want to live in a democracy? Do you think positively about democracy? People think positively about democracy. I think 90% of the people relatively consistently think very positively about democracy in the United States. It has gone down a little, but 90 went down to 85. So it wasn't anything major. If you separate out Democrats and Republicans, then maybe Maybe there's a bigger dip for the Republicans, but if you look at the trends, it's not something to be concerned about. If you just ask, do you support democracy or not? Now, when you get into the nitty gritty details and you try to ask very specifically things like, well, should a candidate accept the election results, the official election results, or should politicians have the right to obstruct journalists or beat protesters, or et cetera, maybe disregard courts or govern by executive order. If you look at these very specific things, then there was a very, very alarming trend. If you looked at Republicans, that these numbers started looking very, very bad. And I was looking at this data and I'm like, okay, well, there's two possible explanations for this. One is that Trump supporters or Republicans in general who are following the lead of Donald Trump are really buying into this. That in fact we can do away with democracy, and that's a good thing. Our guys in power, so this is a good thing. But there's an alternative explanation to this, and that is, well, maybe when someone's guy or gal, it hasn't happened yet, but when someone's guy is in power, then they are much more supportive of their guy, their president, the person they support. They're much more likely to be more forgiving when they use their discretion for things that, from the outside, certainly, if you look at it objectively, that doesn't that looks like democracy erosion. So we were looking at this evidence. I was convinced. I'm like, okay, what's going on in the Republican Party, at least on the elite level, is certainly concerning. There are what happened to the Supreme Court, blocking nominees and then ramming nominees through, depending on who's nominating, is certainly concerning. The overuse of the filibuster is certainly concerning. So there are some things that look very concerning on the level of the elite, the Republican elite. But let's I had some questions on the public opinion level, and that's what I research. I research public opinion. That's kind of the thing that holds all these topics together that you listed. So we started thinking about, well, what could we do? I mean, Donald Trump is president. There was no question about that at the time we were doing this research. So what could we do to study this then? Because Donald Trump is president, we can't change that. I can't just flip my finger and make Donald Trump not president and make it
right.
Yeah. So how could we do this? Yeah. So we came up with a research design that is highly imperfect. So when we talk about research and science and social sciences, you have to admit that all conclusions are uncertain. What we do is always imperfect, but hopefully will get us closer to an answer. So the design we came up with is, well, why don't we tell people to imagine that Trump or the Republican or the Democrat won the next election. Just imagine that. And we said Republican won the next election for half the people, and the Democrat won the next election for the other half of the people. Who these people were completely randomly assigned. So for every person, we flipped a coin basically in the survey, and we gave them this exact same text, except we swapped out Democrat and Republican. Right before that, we asked them, are they Democrats or Republicans? For the independents, we asked if they're leaning towards Democrats or Republicans. If they said they don't lean, they're definitely true independents. We then went on and asked them, well, on the policies most important to you, who do you think represents better, the Democrats or the independents? So we kind of were able to classify everybody into well, you're definitely at least leaning Democrat or definitely leaning Republican. And then we told them to imagine who wins the next election, and we asked them a bunch of questions about what we would consider democracy eroding. And sure enough, it turned out that that when people's own party, so whoever they lean towards, is in power or was going to be in power in this hypothetical situation, they were much more forgiving of these democracy erosions. So when we said democratic hypocrisy, what we titled democratic hypocrisy is exactly that gap for each person of how they would respond to a democracy erosion question, how supportive they would be of actions that we consider democracy eroding when a Republican who they like is in power versus a Democrat who they don't like, or vice versa. When a Democrat who they like is in power versus a Republican who they don't like is in power. Now, at this time, at the writing of this article, we were very cautious because Donald Trump was president. So it was much easier to imagine that a Republican is president than to imagine that right now a Democrat is president in your world, in your mind. So answer these questions. So we didn't want to get into speculations about, okay, by how much are Republicans worse than Democrats? So we were very careful not to engage into this. But there was certainly some evidence that it's not just that Republicans are more democracy eroding than Democrats.
What?
Rather it is whoever is in power, whoever's president is in power, they are much more approving of this.
So just to make sure I understood this, Democrats don't always do the right thing and always support democratic institutions, always at every time. And Republicans aren't alone in being the only party to not support democratic institutions. Is that what you're saying from your research, Professor?
Yes, in fact, that is what I'm saying now. I don't know if you've met a person who always does the right thing. I'm still looking for that person.
I have actually read many books from American political science professors studying political polarization who say the opposite of what you're saying. It's all the Republicans' fault. They've done everything bad. Democrats basically did nothing bad. We could basically ignore them and just focus on the Republicans. There's at least top three well-known researchers here saying that. Now, I don't believe it for the same reason you said.
Okay.
Happens with people.
So let me take a step back.
So I agree with you.
We have to make an important distinction here. I am studying the people. Most of the research, I think, is quite convincing that on the level of the elites, the level of the politicians, Republicans have done more towards democracy erosion. So I personally would agree with that statement. But I am interested in the people. I am interested in the public. And on the level of the public, I can't say who's doing it more based on the evidence we have in this paper, but I do have evidence in this paper that Democrats, when their people are in power, they would be more supportive of democracy erosions than when a Republican is in power. And that's true vice versa. So, okay, now I can go on if you're interested of what research we have been doing since, because this was very interesting. I mean, I was quite unhappy about this. I was perfectly happy saying that the supporters of one party are doing bad things, and I was perfectly happy with that result because at least it's only one party. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily the case. It looked like based on the evidence. So basically, what many of my colleagues who were finding that among Republicans, support for democracy erosions are stronger, they were finding this because they were doing their research when Donald Trump was president. If they were doing their research when a Democrat was president, then they would have probably found that support for democracy erosions is at least mildly stronger among Democrats. But they were not researching this when Obama was president. So when we tried to publish this paper, one of our reviewers said, there's a data set out there. It's called the America's Barometer. It's a multi-country public opinion survey, which is ran out of what's the university in Nashville, the good one. Anyway, by Liz Zachmeister, I believe. Anyway, so there's a big data set that was designed to study Latin America. Okay. Countries where, well, let's just say democracy is not at such high development as in like Western Europe, let's say.
American democracy, banana republic.
So they had designed questions that were specifically tapping these kinds of issues, like, do you think the president has the power to shut down Congress? And questions like that. So I would say that's probably quite democracy eroding if the president shuts down Congress. Now, one of the things that the America's Barometer did is, in addition to Latin America, they collected data on the United States and Canada, also Caribbean countries. So we had a data set that was asking a bunch of questions that nobody in their right mind would ask in the United States, and like the oldest democracy in the world. But they were asking these questions because it was part of a bigger study that was studying mainly Latin America. So we went and looked, and sure enough, we found exactly what we were finding with our experiment, with our thought experiment of imagine that a Democrat is in power, imagine that a Republican is in power. And we found, at least on this one question and another question about ignoring or shutting down, I can't remember exactly, the Supreme Court, we found exactly that when a Democrat is in power, the Democrats are more supportive of the president being able to shut down the courts and shut down Congress. And when a Republican's in power, the Republicans are more supportive of shutting down Congress, etc. Now, when you look at how much more, what I see under the Trump administration is quite concerning. So, by magnitude, under Trump, this problem is worse. And one of the things we've done is, in addition, is we have repeated this survey. We had a survey that was just asking all these questions without the make-believe scenario under Trump. And now we have repeated that survey under the Biden administration. And it was not under the honeymoon period of the Biden administration. It was not under the first 100 days or anything. It was actually exactly after I think everybody would agree, Democrats and Republicans, that it was quite a disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. It was immediately after the.
Sorry, if you were in America, Biden did nothing wrong with the Afghan withdrawal. Not his fault at all. In fact, it was all Trump's fault, and that's what all Democrats here believe. So.
Well, okay, so Biden was just executing the policy that Trump put in place. It was a policy that everybody seemed to be agreeing on. The execution of that policy was quite disastrous, I have to say. Can we blame the one guy at the top for it? Of course we can. They're the commander in chief. The buck stops there. At the same time, I don't think they have. well, I don't think they were lacking the will or the expertise or anything to execute this right. It just went wrong. I think that's fair to say about the entire Afghanistan war, which reached across multiple presidents. I have to say, both on the political left and the political right. So that's when we collected our data. So it was certainly past the honeymoon period. There was a lot of criticism of Biden at the time and the whole withdrawal. I think that's objectively true. Now, true believers will try to rationalize that.
I'm in California.
It's not my.
This is what they're saying.
It's not my place to judge. It's
Hey,
not my
fair
place
enough,
to judge.
fair enough. I'm just saying, you're making some controversial statements that sound like Democrats aren't always in. Hold on. I agree with you. This, like you said, something that I had been thinking the whole time. Tell me when you saw two people get into an argument and one of them was a complete angel and did nothing wrong ever, and the other one did everything wrong and bad. That doesn't happen in reality. It takes two people to tango, is the expression. Someone always did something wrong. But in America, we have this concept of purity on one side, angels, evil ogre monsters on the other side. And I'm like, that's not even how humans operate. But that's the fairy tale we tell in America.
Well, let's just say I'm very concerned about this. So there's a reason why my colleague Jennifer McCoy has devoted an entire research career after her work with the Carter Center to this question. We need to get to a place where people can talk to each other, can be friends, don't have to fight, and can listen to each other. So that's certainly something I would be advocating.
I just find it's nice to see somebody finally say with the background that, both sides would do this. One side is not enlightened angels and the other side all bad people. It's a tough political climate. And when your person, your woman, your man, your they, them is in charge, you're a little bit more okay with, wiggling the rules around a little bit. But when the other guy does it, oh my God, it's the end of the world. The moon is going to crush into the earth. Life will end as we know it. It's the end of everything good. And I've been seeing this the whole time. I'm in California. I'm a liberal. I'm surrounded by liberals. But one of the things that got me was the Durham report. Have you heard about the Durham report?
Nope, I haven't.
Okay, so the Durham report is by, I believe his name is John Durham. It's a federal investigation, top level of federal investigation. It just finished up, and it basically says Hillary Clinton lied about Russiagate and Trump in order to ruin him as a political candidate. She took the Steele dossier. It was not accurate. She knew that. She fed it to the FBI. They used it and the media in order to say that Russia rigged the whole election for them when they didn't actually have that evidence, and they pushed that through. That's now out as part of an official federal investigation. CNN has corroborated that. Nobody has said that it's actually inaccurate. I talked to a Yale lawyer who corroborated it. But you won't hear the left really bring it up. They won't talk about it on the news.
Of course not.
They won't bring it up. There's no apologies. And there's basically, I can ask my fellow Democrats about it, and they go, the what report? No, I haven't heard about that. I don't know what you're talking about. That's not good for democracy, right? When you usurp the system.
Come on. Have you ever heard any politician? Let's not talk about Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump or anyway. Have you ever heard any politician that doesn't try to put things that are not good for them under the rug and is not screaming bloody murder when the other side does something? But come on, this is politics.
I agree. This is
not even politics. This is human nature. So I look. I'm not gonna.
Okay.
So what? I mean, if you haven't noticed this, I don't know what planet you live on. I mean, okay. So there's a message. We should be critically thinking about everything that we see. And I don't know this report. I don't want to talk about this report because there's no point of discussing something I'm not aware of. But you should be always critically thinking. Like, okay, well, does this make sense? what I'm looking at. Does it make sense? Is it possible that it's true? Is it possible that this is something that was played down, or some other thing was played up? That's what you should be. You should be gathering information as much as you can. It's very difficult because we're all in certain information silos. It's quite difficult in today's world. I think a lot of the media environment and a lot of the social media environment, they're pushing us into very, very isolated information environments, and that is not good.
I agree. Just for the record, I understand you don't want to talk about it, but it's called the Report on Matters Related to Intelligence Activities and Investigations Rising Out of the 2016 Campaign. It was released by Special Counsel John Durham, and it's on the official United States Department of Justice website. Nor has it been taken down. It's still up there. So if it's a fake, wow, they got the entire DOJ in on it. Let's talk about this. One of the things that I also gathered was that, Donald Trump, he almost tried for, they wanted to get rid of him as president for quid pro quo. Hey, you want me to do something, I expect you to do something, Ukraine. And yet we now know for a fact that Hunter Biden's laptop is related to President Biden. There is talk about him using his father as a link for quid pro quo in Ukraine. And we now know for a fact that every intelligence agency that came forward about 6 to 7 months ago and said, this smells like Russian disinformation, was lying and had no evidence to back that statement up. That's now recognized as a fact. And yet, when I ask liberals, isn't that kind of weird that you had, and I'm a liberal too, but I go, you had 11 different intelligence agencies all say Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation, and that was not true at all, and they had no evidence to back up that statement. Isn't that worth looking into? Like, isn't that kind of weird that intelligence agencies might do that and might help a candidate? No, we don't need to look into that at all. Not worth talking about. My other favorite one was
Wait. I understand there's congressional investigations on this going on right now. I understand that it's been reported by multiple media platforms. I've seen something on it in Forbes. Forbes is definitely a centrist, not
True.
Not what I would consider quite right or left. I understand there is a DOJ investigation on this. Like, anybody who says otherwise is definitely wrong. Do I know what was going on there? No. Let those investigations play out, and I'm looking forward to the conclusions of this. But
now there's investigations, not 6-7 months ago. Now, recently, and if you look at Democratic Party platform lines and their talking points, it's who cares about Hunter Biden's laptop. I've seen many commercials and jokes from people on their side saying that. So whether the elites are doing it and whether the justice system is moving forward, the fact is that the average Democrats don't want to hear this. They're joking about it. They don't take it seriously on MSNBC, CNN, ABC, and NBC and CBS, and they've done that for 7 months. I'll just leave it there.
I have not seen a supporter of any political party that would like to hear about things that are potentially bad for their party. This is fairly universal. Universal. I mean, if this surprises anybody, I don't know what planet they live on. So I don't know. But I also know that the legal system is unfortunately quite slow. You cannot get good results quickly, for sure. Takes a while, I suppose. True. Like it or not. True. So look, these are legal matters. I'm not a lawyer. And honestly, I don't particularly care about these things. If you look at there are some indictments, looks like, going on right now with the former president. I think that's a story that also took forever. right? If the justice system would have worked fast, then these would have happened fast. The justice system works slow. This will probably help Donald Trump, if you ask me. So that's
Okay.
probably going to be a case. It's maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not. But my gut says that this is going to help Donald Trump. So that's it. Now, back in 2016, 2017, 2018, we had serious discussions in the political science community that the United States does not know how to have a rich businessman as a politician, as a president, as a leading politician.
Yeah.
They have no idea how to handle this, and this is going to be a serious learning curve. This is going to be a learning curve that Silvio Berlusconi has gone through, that multiple politicians in Europe have gone through. We knew this was going to be messy,
Right.
and guess what? It's messy.
Yeah, I love you, man. You're great, and I love how you're so honest with what's going on. It's very
Yeah.
plain and direct and unfiltered and able for the public to understand.
Well, I try, but you know,
You're doing it. I was just trying to point out that you're right when we're saying that both sides do it, and that one side isn't an angel, and you have research surveys to show, hey, when your person's in charge, you're more willing to allow democratic norms to be violated. It's not just one party doing it. I have seen many examples of that. I was just trying to support that and say, you have hard evidence, and I have some anecdotal things of where I saw Democrats say, Republicans, you're bad for doing X. And then they would do the exact same thing and never criticize their own side for doing it. And I thought, what you had said earlier, when you have one child in a debate between an adult and a child, it's tough because you're trying to get the adults trying to get the child to do it. When you have two children, you're screwed.
Yeah.
There's nowhere.
It's a tough situation.
Right? They're all kids.
Look, I would love to say that I have a lot of faith in humanity and people, and they'll be able to sort this out. I don't. I have a former professor who said that when you start political science, you're like power to the people. They know what's right. Couple of years in, you're going like, well, okay, checks and balances, that's great. Limits on maybe representative democracy, that's great. By the time you're retiring, you might be thinking that idea with the king might have not been a bad idea. Hamilton might have been right. That system is the way to go. Look, I don't have faith. What I can tell you is that we've done this study in multiple countries now. I have my political preferences. I have my political sides. It doesn't matter what they are, but this works exactly the same in Hungary as it works in the United States, this study. Right. And now we're looking at some other countries as well, because guess what? That data set does actually have like a bunch of Latin American countries, and Jennifer McCoy is a leading Latin America expert. So we can actually do this. All we need is just more hours of the day, and we'll be fine doing more research. So look, it is what it is. I am deeply concerned about this, though. So we need to get politicians to act a little bit better. And here I'm much more ready to point a finger at the Republicans in the United States.
How do we fix this?
Done a lot.
How do we fix this?
Well, okay, there are some solutions.
How do we
California is, let's say, is a large state. California is electing, what is it now, 55 congressional members, right?
Something like that, yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
I haven't looked into that recently. Sorry.
Yeah,
we actually lost a few points.
No, really? Okay. Well, I
And then we
remember
lost
it was
people.
52, and then it was 54, and then it was 65, and I don't know where we're at right now, but it's still a large number. It's still the largest state, one of the most powerful economies in the world,
Yeah,
if taken independently. So
thank you.
it's just a statement of fact. There's no thank you here. Um,
It's still considered radical to
California
say that in America.
would well, okay, well, California would have the choice because this is a state matter. This is not a federal decision to not elect its politicians by single member district, right? Each politician in California is elected. Each member of Congress is elected from one district where it's usually two parties fighting against each other. But it doesn't have to be that way by the U.S. Constitution. The U.S. Constitution allows California to say we're gonna make 5 or 6 districts with 7 or 8 members of Congress being elected at once, and we're going to set up an election system that is proportional, uh, that maybe has some preferential voting, so that would allow other factions, other parties to emerge. Let's say the Republican Party could have more of a centrist faction, which does have a tradition in California, by the way, much more than let's say in other states. Um, could have more like an AOC type Democratic Party and a more blue dog Democratic Party. You could have the Trump supporters, and let's have a more proportional system. More ideas come onto the table. There would be more collaboration potentially between the center left and the center right. We would not be polarized so much. So this is an option. Europeans have been looking at the United States. So why do you do it this way? Well, do it this way because it is in the interest of the sitting politicians to protect their single member district seats and not to have to do too much work or just it's a Democrat versus Republican. If you look at the percent of re-elections in the U.S. Congress, it's absolutely horrid number. It's up there in 80-90%. That's not good. That is not good.
We do have a lot of landslide election counties and safe districts here where there's almost
Yes.
no competition. There's a theory called the Big Sort that says we used to have a lot of competitive counties. Now, in the 1990s, now they're almost all completely wiped out. It's already basically pre-decided. There's very few swing counties, few swing voters. Everything's very polarized. I have heard about the idea of proportional representation. It does seem like a good idea, given that basically every other modern democracy doesn't operate the way that America does. We have the winner take all system where most people have a multi-party coalition government system. And when America established democracies in Iraq and Afghanistan, we didn't even set up the kind that we have. We set up the kind that Europe has. So it's a begging question. It's like, hey, everybody does this but you. You won't even set up your version when you invade other countries and set it up. Why is your version that great? And I think it's not. But like you said, people in power would lose power if we changed it. So it's not in their interest to
Well,
change
not
it.
necessarily, but the people in power like the system that they managed to rise to power. They
Right.
know it. They know how to
Right.
play it. They
Right.
know once they're in there, their incumbents have an enormous advantage
Yeah.
in getting reelected. So they would be resistant to the change. But California also has a very good referendum system. So sell it to the people and have them vote on it.
Right.
And it's so take it out of the hands of the politicians. So California is probably the place to start, if you ask me.
Well, I appreciate that. We consider ourselves the cutting edge of the world. We like innovating politically, scientifically, culturally. It's very much who we are. And a lot of people already think of themselves as basically a virtual nation state. We just aren't technically there. And if you travel across America, and you go to California, everybody says we're really different than the Midwest. So we'll leave it there. I really liked your research and I liked your honesty. I had felt there was an unwillingness for people to recognize that both sides engage in this behavior and that it's very much, it's the winner take all. My team's winning, so it's okay if we, shave off a little bit of the rules, wiggle the rules a little bit because, hey, we're the good guys and the other guys are the bad guys. So whatever it takes for us to win. And what I notice is that gets to a lot of duplicitous and hypocritical behavior where one side will engage in a behavior, never criticize themselves for it, and then criticize the other side for doing the exact same thing. My favorite one was January 6th was an insurrection, a coup, whatever you want to call it. It was bad. It was wrong. Nobody should have stormed the Capitol. But after we spent months and months criticizing that, the Supreme Court overturned the Roe v. Wade decision and passed it back to the courts. You had a bunch of Democrats in Arizona storm the Capitol and break the doors to get in right after criticizing the other side for doing the same thing. And there was no criticism of Democrats about that. So this storming the Capitol, bad. This storming the Capitol, don't even need to talk about it. And I go, do you know what kind of signals this sends to the public? Chaos. It says chaos. It says no rule and order. It says no law.
But I mean, the anger. Some of our newest research is looking at this. I mean, the anger over there was because of who managed to get on the Supreme Court and through what methods. I think there was some. Certainly, there's a sense of injustice with how certain nominations were done, starting with Merrick Garland, and it's certainly problematic, and that's what we saw at the Kavanaugh nomination, and that's what we saw at the storming of the Capitol, or the anger with Roe v. Wade. So this needs to be fixed. Some of our newest research is looking at divided government. We talk about divided government in the United States as this great thing. It slows things down, it cools things down. Well, it turns out it pisses people off. Divided government pisses people off.
Yeah.
Maybe once again, the U.S. should adopt a more European system. And when you're in power, you can govern, and when you're not in power, you can't govern. But you still have at least voice. You have some say in how things work. So. That's certainly what exacerbating this phenomenon that I'm mentioning, that people are much more supportive of democratic erosions when they are in power versus not. This tends to be the case even more in divided governments when there's obstruction from the other side. So that's just where our research is going.
Wow.
So yeah. Now I'm not gonna put an equation mark like you have between storming a state capital and DC. I'm not gonna put an equation for the reasons of storming it, a lost election versus a policy that is not an equation. But probably both of them were wrong, and they have very, very bad optics, especially when one says, "Oh no, that was fine," and this wasn't. And the other way around. So it has bad optics. I really hope we can get to a world where polarization is not so bad that people feel like they have to storm the government of anything, any of the states or the federal government. It'd be nice to get to a place over there. My research is going to keep working on that. Hopefully, we'll get there. I'm not going to be the person to get us there, but maybe I can get us an inch closer.
Hopefully, because I've talked about 100 professors here, and when I ask them, "Are you sure that America is going to get better and not worse?" they all say the same word: hope. I hope it gets better, and I got to tell you, I find that very disheartening. That a lot of experts who are looking at this field and intimately aware of it, when I ask them, do you know that we're going to get better? The phrase is, I hope. That's not reassuring as an American, just to put that out there. And the videos are available for everybody. You don't have to take my word for it. You can watch them all and watch to the end and see person after person go, ooh, ugh, good question. I hope it gets better. I don't know, man. That's basically what they're all saying. I think one was like, oh, it's definitely not going to get worse. We've seen worse times. So hopefully we'll leave it there. Last two questions for you. You're not you. You're not me. You're a third-party person watching this video. They learned a lot. They saw some stuff. They're like, wow, I haven't heard anybody say that. That's fascinating. But it's a week later after they watched the video and they're struggling to remember everything. But they're saying to themselves, there was this one thing that professor said. And while I struggle to remember what the rest of the video was about, I cannot get this one thought the professor said out of my head. What is that one thought you want a random third-party person you'll never actually meet to not be able to stop thinking about 5 days after they finish watching this video?
Well, if you want the central message of our research, then we can certainly say that people, when the party they support are holding the presidency, are in power, they are more forgiving of democracy erosion, independent of party. That's the main message of our research, and we're not happy about it. And don't be that person. That's the one thought I can give him. Don't be that person. Be objective.
That's brilliant. Okay, I hope you found this was a fair interview. We didn't put words in your mouth. You got to say your piece. You don't have to answer, but we always ask, do you have any recommendations? Do you know anybody who might be willing to be interviewed? Always try to keep the conversation going. You don't have to answer, but we always ask.
Off the top of my head, I'd say no. But if I can think of somebody whose research I think you'd be interested in and is in this general vein of things, then for sure I'll be in touch. I hope we can stay in touch
Absolutely.
longer as well. And I don't know. I mean, Jennifer McCoy's work on polarization is certainly interesting. Her colleague Murat. He's gonna hate me for forgetting his last name, but rightfully so. He's in Turkey and has worked on this topic globally as well. So even if you can't get Jennifer on the line, I would definitely try to get her co-author.
Okay.
Turkey is another one of these lovely countries that's certainly struggling with
Right.
Political polarization for sure, like mine, like yours, like Turkey. So his perspective might be very insightful, I would say.
Yeah, I'd love to interview Jennifer McCoy and him, and we'll try for that. I really appreciate the recommendations. We'll leave it there. I want to say thank you, Professor, for coming out. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your honesty. I find it to be very helpful, this particular interview, with understanding the problem and the nature, because I've thought, like you said, you can't just approach it with, I did nothing wrong. You guys need to go fix yourself. It's got to be, hey, I have some room for improvement. You have some room for improvement. Both of us made mistakes. We can both work towards healing together. I felt that to be a much more mature analysis, and your research is the one that's closest to supporting that conclusion. So that's rewarding for me personally. We'll leave it there, and I'll email you a copy of the video soon. And I want to say thank you for coming out. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon. Thank you, Professor.
Bye, everyone.